Ride the signal through the unknown. This is the cryptic current.
In 1915, a shocking magic performance took place in Vienna. The main character was a 16-year-old boy. It was said that he could put himself into a coma state, allowing his body to move freely at the boundary between life and death for many days. He could also simultaneously read the thoughts of thousands of people, clearly understanding all their psychological activities, both good and bad. Additionally, he could control psychology, manipulate others to follow his will, transcend space and time through consciousness, predict the future, and possess many other extraordinary superpowers. This trip to Vienna became the most precious memory in the young man's life, because his psychological experiments caused a local sensation, attracting the most famous scientists of that time. Among them were two top scientists, Albert Einstein and Sigmund Freud, who came to watch the performance and were extremely intrigued. That year, Einstein's research was at its peak, while the young man was completely ignorant of science. Complex concepts like electromagnetism, quantum theory, relativity, time, and space were completely absent from his mind. One was a leading scientist, the other scientifically illiterate. The two had no common ground in knowledge. But they miraculously met under fate's arrangement and the test of a century-old challenge. And in the end, even Einstein couldn't help but explain that this was an extraordinary person. We have previously shared about this character, and perhaps you have heard quite a bit about him. But just like with Nikola Tesla, after researching this character, I feel it's a great omission to overlook so much information about him. Too many mysteries about the universe and the human spiritual world were revealed through this character's supernatural talents. Today, we will talk about one of the 10 most special individuals with extraordinary abilities in the 20th century, Messing. Hello everyone, I am Miss Ruby. One day in 1915, the young man received an invitation from the genius scientist Einstein in the suburbs. When Messing entered Einstein's house, what impressed him most were the piles of books everywhere. They were almost always within reach. Einstein was amiable and dressed simply. Freud wore black clothes, appearing stern and decisive. They looked at Messing without saying a word. It turned out that Einstein and the Austrian master psychologist Sigmund Freud had negotiated beforehand. They planned to conduct an experiment with this young man. So before the young man arrived, Freud had placed a small bronze tweezers and a large iron tweezers in the bathroom drawer. After the young man entered the house, neither Einstein nor Freud said a word. Freud used his thoughts to send the young man a command. He was to go into the bathroom on the right, in the first drawer of the small cabinet, and take out the small bronze tweezers. The young man was seen moving around as familiarly as if in his own home. He walked toward the bathroom and retrieved the bronze tweezers. Freud was very astonished but kept a calm expression, showing no reaction. Following that, he used his thoughts to issue a second command. Using the tweezers in his hand, at the fastest possible speed, plucked 3 hairs from Einstein's mustache. The young man immediately went up to scientist Einstein and said to him, "Sorry, Professor." The two scientists were utterly amazed witnessing this scene, and had confirmed the young man's mind-reading ability, ending the experiment. Before the young man left, he unexpectedly went up to Einstein and said, "Doctor, in 5 years, you will receive a major award." After hearing this, Einstein just smiled without saying anything, not paying much attention to it. Sure enough, by 1921, due to the photoelectric effect and achievements in theoretical physics, Einstein was awarded the Nobel Prize. The young man's prophecy came true. And at this moment, both Einstein and Freud were astonished to discover that the young man from 5 years ago could not only read minds but also foresee the future. Currently, there are many films about superheroes. People often see these superheroes flying freely between heaven and earth. Although this seems unbelievable, in reality, the human brain itself is full of mysterious and complex capabilities that we are far from fully understanding. In January 2017, the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, declassified nearly 930,000 documents, which revealed Project Stargate, the U.S. government's 20-year-long psychic research program. This project primarily utilized special abilities and human superpowers for espionage activities, as they firmly believed that abilities such as clairvoyance and foreseeing the future are innate human capabilities. It's just that in modern society, they have been severely forgotten. And with proper training, ordinary people can restore these abilities. Therefore, the CIA invited many participants to their headquarters for training. After undergoing 1 to 2 years of training, this group of superpowered soldiers would be assigned to different departments within the CIA, using mind control abilities and supernatural powers to serve military and espionage operations. However, in real life, there have also been extremely special and rare individuals. They were born with their own superpowers, which science still cannot explain to this day. Like the superpowered figure Messing we're discussing today. He not only had telepathic abilities and mind reading but also clairvoyance, seeing through space, remote viewing, and remote sensing. What amazed people most was that his superpowers far exceeded our imagination. Messing's abilities were like an endless source of power, without limits. And it all started from a near-death experience of his. On September 10, 1899, Wolf Messing was born in a Jewish village near Warsaw, Poland. Messing's parents were both devout Jewish believers. Influenced by his family, Messing also became very pious. However, Messing frequently sleepwalked as a child, and to prevent accidents, his parents would place a basin of cold water in front of his bed every night before sleep. This way, whenever Messing got out of bed to sleepwalk, his feet touching the cold water would wake him up. Unexpectedly, this method cured Messing's strange condition. Geniuses often show unusual traits from childhood, and Messing was no exception. From a young age, he displayed extraordinary memory. By age 16, he could fluently read the Jewish Talmud. Therefore, his parents wanted to send Messing to school to train him as a rabbi. But Messing didn't want to become a black-robed rabbi. He refused to attend a rabbinical school. Unexpectedly one evening, while on his way to buy cigarettes for his father, Messing saw a giant dressed in white. This giant said to Messing, "My son, God has sent me to find you. You must predict the future and fulfill your duties to him." That year Messing was 19. The messenger's voice thundered in his ears, making Messing so tense that he fainted. That strange incident had a profound impact on Messing. He no longer opposed studying at the seminary, and complied with his parents' arrangements to study at a Jewish seminary in another city. However, Messing's life changed. One day in the prayer room, Messing encountered a homeless man. This reminded him of the white-robed giant he had met before. The two looked very similar, and Messing began to suspect that his parents had tricked him into attending the seminary. The rebellion of youth finally stirred within Messing. He wanted to escape, to leave the seminary. So to have enough money to escape, Messing stole the money donated by Jewish believers, then boarded a train to Berlin, hiding under the seat and falling asleep. However, Messing was still discovered by the ticket inspector, who insisted on checking his ticket. At that moment, young Messing didn't know what to do. He quickly picked up an old newspaper from the floor and handed it to the inspector, with a strong wish rising in his heart. He hoped the inspector would treat the newspaper as a train ticket. The result was the railway worker took the newspaper, glanced at it, then punched it with a hole puncher and said, "Why hide when you already have a ticket?" And this was the first time Messing demonstrated his supernatural ability. But what Messing couldn't have imagined was, his life would completely change afterward, as if heaven and earth had turned up. Messing rode the train to Berlin. He could only survive day by day with the little money earned for repairing bowls, doing odd jobs but still not having enough to eat, often suffering from hunger and thirst. Finally, one day, Messing fainted on the street from extreme hunger. His heartbeat and pulse stopped, his body became ice cold. People thought Messing had died, so they took him to the morgue. Unexpectedly, the next day, an intern at the morgue discovered Messing lying there had recovered his heartbeat. That intern immediately reported to a doctor. Thanks to the doctor's treatment, Messing gradually recovered his health. And then this matter reached a doctor named Abel. This doctor was very curious about Messing. Therefore, he actively sought out Messing, while also willing to help him solve his living problems in Berlin. In return, Messing had to let Dr. Abel research the reason why he could come back to life after having died. From then on, Dr. Abel began conducting experiments with the young man. During this process, the doctor also discovered he could read others' thoughts. He often immediately guessed what the professor wanted him to do, then performed it right away without any deviation, and the professor was also amazed by the experimental results. Not only that, Professor Abel also trained Messing in how to turn off the sensation of pain in his body, and so Messing could perform a thrilling act, which was letting others drive nails into his neck and chest in front of an audience. But he could act as if nothing had happened, his facial expression completely normal. And like that, Messing could also earn some money to send back home to help his poor parents. So it can be said that Abel was the one who discovered and nurtured Messing's talent, who's completely accurate. Afterward, Professor Abel introduced Messing to a circus, and from then on he began his performance career. Messing's performances were rich and unique, including finding hidden objects, reading minds, predicting the future, and even hypnotizing. Messing could even hypnotize himself, not only putting himself into an extremely deep sleep, like a wax statue lying in a glass coffin, moreover, completely motionless for 3 days, his soul freely wandering outside the body, between life and death. At the age of 16, Messing began performing telepathy acts. He would perform based on what the audience was thinking. For example, recounting past experiences of people he had never met, or finding objects that the audience had hidden on themselves. At his peak, Messing could sense the thoughts of thousands of people simultaneously. Messing's performances often left the audience extremely shocked, and caused a great stir in society at that time. This prompted Messing to tour many places around the world. In 1916, Messing was only 17 years old, but had already earned the title of the world's most mysterious figure. And in Professor Abel's training, Messing also discovered his limitless potential. Whenever Messing fell into an acute unconscious state, a state where he was conscious but his body had no reaction, he found he could predict the future. However, when performing psychological experiments on stage, some still suspected Messing of carrying receivers or hiding wires. People remained skeptical about the authenticity of his special ability. Many considered Messing a fraud. But Messing didn't want to explain further, not even getting angry anymore. Because for Messing, when off stage, in daily life, he was just an ordinary person, always adhering to justice, living by principles, not breaking the law, nor going against the will of heaven. There was only one issue Messing still didn't understand: what exactly his special ability, that innate talent, was, and where it came from. For Messing himself, this was also a topic that could never be fully explored. In 1931, Messing went to perform in Paris, France. His psychological experiment performance caught the attention of Eugene Osti, the director of the Paris Institute of Psychology. Osti invited Messing to participate in a psychological experiment, which Messing happily agreed to immediately. Also participating in the experiment was a Tibetan monastery abbot named Navdilai Bhagati. When the experiment ended, the Lama circled around Messing, then rubbed his head and chanted mantras. Messing felt a strong energy emanating from the Lama. The energy surrounded his head, gradually putting Messing into a state. He felt as if his nerves snapped, his soul leaving his body. He saw his physical body, saw the Lama, saw Professor Osti. His vision continuously expanded, then he saw all of Paris. Then saw the entire world. Next, Messing's soul quickly traversed the universe. He saw even more wondrous scenes. But it was very difficult to describe the truth of the universe he saw in human language. Messing said, after escaping the physical body, I freely shuttled back and forth in the universe like a shuttle. I could do anything, but I didn't want to do anything. Just living like a tired god. For me, there are no secrets or mysteries at all. I see all things in the past and future. How my prehistoric ancestors drove saber-toothed tigers out of caves. How the Egyptians built the giant pyramids. I am everywhere, just with a slight thought, anytime, anywhere, I can arrive. Messing felt he had experienced an extremely long time, an eternity without end. Until he felt his brain truly couldn't take it anymore, then suddenly returned to his body. But when Messing opened his eyes, he was terrified by the scene before him. Professor Osti stood in front of him, blood still flowing from his face. Messing didn't know what had happened while his soul was away from his body. He glanced at the clock and discovered only 15 minutes had passed. It turned out that when Messing lay down, the chair, books, tableware, and surrounding objects began to move. A piece of glass had cut the professor's face. Messing told Latma he had seen events that would happen 8 to 9 years later. Latma said the future Messing saw was predetermined fate. A great war was about to occur, millions would die on the battlefield. After hearing this, Messing said, "I know when I will die, but I won't have children." Latma nodded and explained, "You can't have children, otherwise you would pass your talent to them. In today's human society, that is not allowed. Humans are not yet ready to open their minds, because their souls are not pure, disturbed by evil. Any scoundrel, if possessing strong mind-reading abilities, would become a dangerous criminal, because they cannot control their own desires." Latma seemed to sense Messing's firm adherence to moral standards. He told Messing, "Fortunately you stand on the side of light, never crossing into darkness." However, even those on the side of light cannot resist the arrangements of fate. In 1937, while performing in a Warsaw theater, Messing predicted that if Hitler turned east and attacked the Soviet Union, Hitler would surely die. Upon hearing this, Hitler was extremely angry, immediately offering a 200,000 mark reward for Messing's head. With no other choice, Messing was forced to flee German pursuit. His time in Germany was short. In 1939, World War II began. The military occupied Warsaw, the capital of Poland. The streets and alleys of Warsaw were filled with wanted posters for Messing's capture. Once, on a crowded street, Messing was captured by the Gestapo and imprisoned. And so Messing decided to escape. He concentrated his mental power, making the guard enter the cell, then hand him the keys. The guard obediently complied. After making the guard enter, Messing used hypnosis to control other guards, making them all sit on the ground. Then successfully passed through 3 guard posts, escaped Warsaw through the sewers and hid in a truck full of hay, fleeing to the Soviet Union under cover of darkness. In 1945, exactly as Messing prophesied, Germany was defeated. In less than 10 years, the Nazis completely collapsed. In the Soviet Union, fortunately Messing wasn't sent to the Gulag concentration camp. Messing was helped by a Belarusian, performing on the streets to make a living. But not long after, he was taken by secret police to Moscow and imprisoned in KGB headquarters. But despite locked doors and strict guards, Messing could still come and go freely. And so, Messing's miraculous abilities were reported to Stalin. Stalin found this person very interesting. To test Messing's supernatural abilities, Stalin gave him a mission, to rob a bank. Under secret police surveillance, Messing went to the largest bank in Moscow. He walked to the counter, handed a blank piece of paper torn from a notebook to the teller. The teller received the blank paper, as if possessed, enthusiastically went to get 100,000 rubles and gave it to Messing. After taking the money, Messing put it in his briefcase, boldly walked out of the bank and handed it to the police waiting outside. After counting the money, the secret police returned it to Messing, and Messing went back to the bank and returned it to that teller. The bank employee was very confused and checked the paper again, discovering it wasn't any kind of check, but just a regular piece of paper torn from a notebook. At that moment, the employee was so frightened he had a heart attack, nearly dying. After learning what happened to the bank employee, Messing felt very remorseful and guilty. The KGB report reached Stalin, making him begin to believe in Messing's supernatural abilities. This event also helped Messing become famous throughout the Soviet Union and become a star of that era. After that, Stalin gave another challenge, requiring Messing to find every way to pass through professionally trained guards and enter his villa directly to meet him without prior notice. Not long after Stalin announced the mission, Messing walked straight into his villa area, without presenting any documents or giving any reasons. Even Stalin's close bodyguards respectfully made way for him. Messing walked through the corridor. Although the servants there were all veteran secret police, no one stopped him. When Stalin looked up, he saw a person standing in front of him, who was exactly Messing. Stalin asked him how he managed to get through the entire journey. Messing said that he had transmitted a thought to everyone that I am Beria, Stalin. And so, Messing passed this challenge. This made Stalin completely believe in Messing's special abilities. From then on, Stalin always kept this #1 mysterious figure by his side. It is said that both Stalin and Beria were very obedient to Messing. But regarding this issue, there are no accurate documents. So no one knows what the truth actually was. Some people even believe that Messing was just Stalin's private magician, kept by his side merely for entertainment. Messing once revealed some visions about the future. He said that Russia's main competitor is not America but China, and Russia would sooner or later face difficult times. In his predictions about Russia's future, Messing also mentioned Ukraine. He said that because of a piece of land, a large country would fall into crisis. This would lead to destruction worldwide. Messing predicted that China would show aggression towards other countries and would carry out nuclear attacks on Japan and Taiwan. This would be the result of conflict between these countries and Russia. It is known that Messing worked tirelessly with the title of legendary figure until just before his death in 1974. By then, he had mastered many different languages, including Russian, Polish, Hebrew, and even German. He had no children and lived his entire life beside his wife. He passed away on November 8, 1974, and was buried in a cemetery in Moscow, next to his wife's grave. As for the KGB, shortly after, it confiscated all his diaries and documents, and these materials have not been declassified to this day. However, before Messing passed away, there was a famous journalist working at RIA Novosti, Russia's largest news agency. Vladimir, at the request of the American weekly National Enquirer, had contacted to arrange a meeting with Messing. Vladimir recalled that he spent a whole week arranging the meeting with Messing. They conversed for several hours. When Vladimir prepared to publish the conversation content of the weekly issue, at that time, since the Soviet government had not yet dissolved, there was still pressure from superiors, so the opportunity to publish that interview was cancelled. And this was also Messing's final interview with the media. Until 2012, Vladimir published part of the interview content with Messing in issue 31 of Ukrainian Truth. The article mentions that Messing could clearly perceive the psychological activities of thousands of people whenever he saw people pursuing benefits, while internally generating thoughts of harming others. These unkind thoughts often caused him suffering, as if enduring mental torment. The overly clear perception made him very distressed, because he knew that people's malicious thoughts and actions would often bring them misfortune. When Messing sensed others' misfortune, he would express it in a subtle way. Please, cherish each day. Messing once stated in his autobiography that none of my abilities can be considered a supernatural means to obtain material benefits. If I did so, I would not achieve success. Moreover, I would suffer retributive punishment. That is certain. Messing also wrote, the ability to foresee events and observe from a distance truly exists. We cannot explain this kind of phenomenon, because regarding the nature of time, the relationship between time and space, and even the causal relationship between past, present, and future, we still lack a truly clear understanding. Messing believed that his special extrasensory ability was due to the existence of a special field. According to what Messing said, if this special field could be discovered and studied, then it would bring humans even more possibilities. Just like the discovery of electricity and such. Through today's exploration of Messing, it made me think of Nikola Tesla. Regarding the exploration of these figures, it also seems to be one of the ways to help us understand the universe better. And no matter who it is, someone endowed with special abilities, wanting to maintain and develop them correctly and accurately, must uphold the necessary moral standards. I wonder what you think. Do you believe in God, Messing's special abilities? And have you ever asked the question, why the stories of these legendary figures rarely reach us like this? Let's hear everyone share their thoughts in the comments section below the video. And well, our sharing today will stop here. If you found this video useful, then don't forget to share it with a friend. Let's continue watching. Thank you very much, and hello and see you next time.
If the signal hooked you, subscribe and catch the next ripple.